Hello, I'm Vanessa, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm going to have two of my favorite people on the podcast, Kathleen Metcalf and Margaret Smith. Now, we're going to be talking about their program, Be You the Inner Circle, but specifically, we're talking about what happens when you bring together a group of administrative professionals and you create a safe space for them to work on their personal development, so self-esteem, courage, the ability to take risks, and how that feeds into their professional development and how those people are able to grow within their companies, within their lives, because they've created this foundation for themselves. So I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. And without further ado, let's get into the interview. Good morning, ladies. How are you today?
Good morning. Good.
Happy to be
Good. Well, I'm so excited to reconnect because the last time you were on the podcast, you were just about to launch your new personal and professional development group, Be You the Inner Circle. And now we're 9 months in, something like that. And I just want to find out, what the heck have you learned? How has it gone? What kind of amazing results are you getting? Because we've talked about this. Personal development is the foundation for professional development, and self-care is an essential foundation of our own ability to take care of everybody around us. And while we might know that on an intellectual level, putting it into practice is really hard. And from what I've heard, that's something you guys have been able to achieve with this group and with the members in the group. So I'm excited to chat about all of that. But to start, can you tell me what is Be You the Inner Circle? What the heck are we talking about here?
Wow.
So Be You the Inner Circle is a monthly membership for admin in the real estate industry. So we meet twice a month on the second and third Fridays of each month for an hour and a half. And then we have accountability groups. So all members, we have 33 members right now, I think, are broken up into groups of 5 or 6 people. And so then they get to meet with their accountability groups as well. And so it's a journey of kind of this constant evolving of ourselves that's never ending, really.
And what inspired you to create this group?
Well, Kathleen and I were just in alignment in so many different ways. And I've had a vision in my head for something like this for a long time. And it came from developing the Pacific Northwest Admin Mastermind, and then also this retreat that I put on for admin annually. And so when I met Kathleen and we started talking, and she was like, well, I would love to do something like that too. The idea of partnering with her and doing this just fit so perfectly. And the whole movement around personal development specifically came from my mom and this theme that she has called Be You. And it's something that's been around since I was little. And I didn't realize how much it really impacted me professionally and personally until I got to like my 30s. And I realized, oh, not everybody has someone who supports them in truly being themselves growing up. And because I had that foundation, I had a lot of courage and self-esteem to help me take more risky moves in life, really. So that's why it's named that as well.
Well, and I realized as you were talking, not everybody in the world knows who you two are. So Kathleen, who is Kathleen Metcalf?
So I am a coach, training, consulting person and company, KathleenMetcalf.com, inspired for results. And I have been a real estate agent. I have been a real estate admin. I've been a recruiter and a trainer in the retail industry. And I am very altruistically driven that everyone should live their best life. And so in my commitment to the real estate industry in which I work, I really saw this need for agents and admin to have parallel universes of how they can grow. And agents do this work all the time. And so now we can provide, an opportunity in Be You the Inner Circle for admin to go through their own journey of coming into their own so they can really contribute and have a great life. And so that's who I am and how I got so connected to wanting to do this.
And for people who are followers of Pro REA Staffing, or if you've listened to the podcast often, Kathleen has been on many times. She and I consider ourselves sister companies. So we hire, she trains, and it's a really wonderful partnership. And I think we're on year 5 or 6, or I don't know. It's been a long time. It's awesome. Right. And then, okay, so Margaret Smith, who are you?
So my name's Margaret Smith, yes, and I go by Mo often in the real estate industry, especially. And before I had my own company, I Love It When, which Kathleen is so lovingly wearing the shirt today. I was in the real estate world on a team in Bothell, Washington called Pickett Street Properties. And I was there for about 7.5 years. And so I learned that I could run a small business and that I really enjoyed the variety, which then pushed me to create my own company. So my background, though, I always tell people, is a combination of social work and art. And so I just have a love for people and a love for being creative and encouraging that in others. So it's been a great fit to have my own company. Yeah.
So today we're talking about the importance of, personal and professional development, foundation as a foundation for self-esteem, as a foundation for this kind of growth. So who is attracted to this group? Tell me, what's maybe a typical profile of somebody who has joined the BU Inner Circle?
So I would say it is a growth-minded administrative professional or operations professional who is really interested in what's next. How can they level up? How can they take it to the next level? And one of the things that we found in doing our surveys, and that I'm sure we'll talk about this morning, is how surprised they were at what BU really gets down to, in addition to, what's a new checklist or what's the best software, or because it goes so much deeper than that. But now our members get to see oh, this is really what it takes to get to the next level.
And is everybody in the real estate industry?
Right now, yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so when you started the group, what were some of the key objectives that you set for the group?
We wanted community, and I want to just sparkle on Mo's retreat. So she has had a retreat 4 years now.
Yes. Yeah.
For real estate admin in person, right? Last year, it ended up needing to be virtual. 3 days, huge speakers, Gary John Bishop, authors, Susan Scott, author, to be able to come, and just was fantastic. I attended last year virtually, but it's 3 days. The year is 365 days long, and the ability to keep momentum going from a retreat is difficult for anyone, right? With how people learn and then forget and move on to what they used to do. So we wanted to create community. We wanted to be able to have a forum for real estate admin to develop their leadership skills. And we would really want to create a movement where real estate admin are coming into their own so that they're happy and joyous in their lives, and they are really able to craft their career.
So what were some of the assumptions that you made as you were preparing to launch this group? What did you think was going to happen?
I love this question. The first thing was, after being in admin masterminds, and those are typically free and just open to people for whoever wants to come, I expected that if people were paying for something, they would do all of the work. They would read the book entirely, they would do all of the homework, and that's not the case. And I think what that showed me was just that the need for a supportive group like this, the accountability and the desire for everybody to move along the same path is really important. And then also because of the way that I think, and just the passion I think I have for this, and Kathleen as well, I expected hundreds of people to sign up the first round, because I'm like, this is so affordable. This is comparative to coaching and the cost that I know that is on a monthly basis. This is really affordable for either the admin to pay for themselves or for a real estate agent to pay for their admin. And so I think what that just reiterated to me was the need that there is for something like this. We are doing something that's completely different than what anybody else offers, as far as I know, and we just need to tell more people about it. And so, and then the third thing I would say about what has surprised, or what assumptions I made was that they may not be able to achieve the same level of vulnerability that we achieve in person at my retreats or at masterminds. And that's just not at all true. If the intention is set and the container is created, which Kathleen and I do really well, anything is possible. And so that's been really cool to find out.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, right? We've learned how to live on Zoom thanks to COVID, and we've adapted to it. So you feel like people can be as vulnerable and build the same connection via video that they can in person? Like, that's something that you're seeing in the group?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wow, that's fantastic. So my next question is, what surprised you the most? And I have to say that is a surprise for me. So that's very cool. So what else? Like, so as you guys moved through, and you guys have different, there's like a agenda or a curriculum, so to speak, that as you move through
We have
the
a
topic
success
list.
path.
Success path. There you go. Okay, that's what it's called. So as you're
Yeah.
moving through the success path, you probably had certain, again, assumptions of what would be achieved or how people would respond to the different sections. Where did people kind of have the most aha moments, or like get the most jazzed as you were moving through the success path?
I would say it was in how much value there was going to be in deconstructing before we constructed. So people wanted to learn new things. And we very consciously, in the first couple of stages, needed to work with everyone on what are your beliefs? What are things that you value? What are things that you're holding on to that do not serve you any longer? We had to shed some enough of the armor to allow the new things we were going to bring in next to stick. Because I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't take any time for myself, I don't think I can, was all of that going on. And we really had to push that aside so that we could give them some space to transform.
I want to dig into that some more, because that's some heavy stuff right there. Okay, because we all have the not enough at some level, the I can't do that, this and that. So, and I would, I'm making an assumption here, but I could see how admins who are in a supportive role and don't have the, not necessarily willing to like put themselves out there like an agent is, might have more of that, or might carry some stuff that they do need to shed. And so were there people who were not aware that that was work they needed to do? And what was it like kind of cracking through that?
Well, this is where the beauty of the group and the accountability groups. So we have at group level where people will share. And sometimes we did, we picked on people and we made everyone share. So they got used to just talking out loud, in front of a microphone on camera. And then the accountability groups that are, 3, 4, 5 people was a level to be intimate. So we really very consciously created both experiences, and we were very intentional and had exercises. We read a book, for every stage there. Then we've had, speakers come in to reinforce what we're learning. We've had homework for them to practice things. So we really very consciously looked at allowing them to have their own experiences, but through a structure that we knew would work, but they were allowed to go through it at their own pace in their own way.
You also reminded me that I feel like those stages that she talked about where we started, I felt like it was June. So it was month like 4 or 5 getting into it, where people who I think had joined and nobody really knew what to expect, that happens all the time when they come to my retreat. And so some people faded away. Some people decided this wasn't what they wanted to dig in, and they didn't see the connection between personal development and professional, and that's okay. But what I saw from the people that stuck around was that by June, they were like, oh, I didn't realize I did that every day. I didn't realize I said that to myself every day. I didn't realize that was how my body felt when I turn away from conflict rather than confronting conflict and being willing to talk about it. So there was like so the people that started to realize things began to understand that their power and ability to shift their reality by being in the moment, being present, and then having the tools to deal with conflict, or like how to continue to find more peace.
And just speak their truth.
Mhm.
Were there any common limiting beliefs that came up, or any limiting beliefs that were sort of surprising, like you didn't expect that person would have that limit? You know, obviously share names, but like, wow, you had that limiting, really? Because I think we all have it, and I think it's helpful to kind of see what's common and how somebody can look like they have it all together on the outside, and that's totally not the truth on the inside. So tell me more about those limiting beliefs and what came up.
Well, I mean, Kathleen, we did some live interviews this week with 4 of our members to share a little bit about their journey. And so that was Amanda, Jennifer, Steffian, and Kristen. And at different times, they all shared, like, I knew other people were facing the same problems as I was, but it's different when you actually get to hear them talk about it. So yeah, there were multiple members that were like, what? You have low self-esteem? What? You don't want to take on that challenge? What? You're afraid to have that conversation? And so it really, I think it's comforting, because then you realize, okay, it's not just me. I'm not the problem. Like, there is, I think, and especially when it comes to, we have mostly women. So we have 2 gentlemen in the group, which is fantastic. We welcome everybody. But especially I've noticed that with women, we just have a tendency, because of our conditioning, how we're raised, at least in Western society, we don't ask for what we want always. We don't believe we deserve what we deserve, really. So that conversation around self-care and asking for what you want and what you need is actually extremely compassionate for other people as well as yourself. And that has been a realization that's been surprising, I think, for a lot of people.
I think that's a really good point. It's compassionate, right? Because if you're not telling your partner what you need and they can't figure out why the heck you're mad at them, it's not compassionate for either of you, right? And in all parts of your life, your boss, you come in grumpy, or like you're quiet, they don't know what the problem is. There's compassion there. Kathleen, what were you going to say?
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
It was in one of the exercises, Mo, that we did, where we asked people to teach something. And there were so many people that were like, I don't have anything. I'm not that good at anything. And it was fascinating to watch them talk about essential oils, to talk about, how they do planning, how they can teach a class about contracts, and it was just amazing to watch how they knew, something that no one else knew, and that no one else knew that they knew. And so they didn't even realize the richness in their network until we just asked them to do, a little 15-minute thing. And we would even partner with them if they wanted to do it, if they hadn't been on camera. So there were just these little experiences that showed them how big, their community was, how much they knew, how much the thing that they took for granted was one of their superpowers. Because it came easily to them.
Cool. Yeah, right. Oh, I love that. I want to go back to this idea of personal development as a foundation for professional development. What does that mean? So when we talk about personal development, what are we working on there?
We're in self-esteem, ultimately, right? Because personal development is when people are breaking through what they believe, what they think, their own experience of how they know themselves. And the stronger that platform, then the easier it is to try something new, to put out an idea, to be able to say, well, that's not my experience, or here's where my research shows. And this is value that admins have in their work. When they stay silent about that because they don't think they have anything to say, from a business owner perspective, they are leaving so much value on the table because they're different than their agent, right? Like, some agents are good at operations.
Most are.
Many are not. Right? They're stellar salespeople, and we really appreciate that because they keep all of us rolling. So we love that. But their operations person to really be able to come to the table, right? And be able to say, here's what I've learned. Here's my idea. Here's what I see. Here's where we're losing money, right? To be able to have those conversations, which look confrontational from one angle, but they're also highly contributory to be able to really make a difference and take care of things. So, that's just sort of a trajectory around personal development, is really confronting ourselves and then being able to take step forwards. And this is where the safety comes in, of how do they feel safe with themselves, safe with the people that they're with, so that they can take risks, fail, learn, try. Yes.
Oh, so much good stuff there. Okay, so this reminded me of the hierarchy of needs, which Maslow's, is that how we pronounce it? Maslow. Yeah, but hierarchy of needs, and how important that is in our life and also in our professional life. And so I want to touch on that from the business owner's thought perspective, right? So if you have an admin who maybe doesn't have the best self-esteem or is dealing with their own stuff, as we all are, talk about the kind of environment they need to create and like the levels they need to provide for that person, so that that person can be self-actualized and be the best version of themselves in that environment.
Well, man, I mean, to start off with, I think it reminds me of Bonnie Low-Creeman, who just connected with Kathleen recently, and she's a CEO, author, and professional trainer with operations folks from around the world. And she shared an article with us about a conversation she had with a compensation expert, and how first and foremost, if an executive assistant doesn't have the money to pay their rent, pay for childcare, buy food, and have a basic, like a really basic level of income, you're not going to get much else out of that admin. Like, because every day they're going to be thinking about how do I make more money, and just have, we talk about agents and how they get, I forget what they call it. Like, you don't want them to get commission breath, because the person on the other side of the phone can hear that, and it's not attractive. Yeah, it's not, and it's the same thing.
They're desperate, right?
Yeah, with the operations person, you want them to know that their basic needs are met, and once that basic need is met, then they can go above and beyond that. If that need is met, then the next thing I usually look at is communication. And does that feel safe? Is there a place where the lead agent welcomes feedback and is responsive rather than reactive? Mm-hmm. And then we can go from there. But those two basic ones are usually where it begins, well, at least in the real estate world, from what I found.
Right. And the more supportive the environment, the more it's okay to take risks and fail sometimes and learn from it and move forward. The more of that kind of nurturing, safe environment a business leader is able to create, the more the people within that company are able to take steps forward, take risks, grow and grow and grow. Yeah. And I see this all the time as a recruiter when I see teams where the agent is really critical, really has zero tolerance for mistakes, is very, very nitpicky. They squash the people in their organization, and it's like this terrible cycle, because then they're angry because their person isn't stepping up. That person's afraid to step up, and then when they kind of step over the line a little bit, they get their hands slapped, and then so when we talk about personal development, look, we all need to work on it, because clearly those are some issues that the leader needs to focus on for themselves. Like, they have their own personal development that they need to pay attention to. But I love that we were able to touch on that, because that safe environment, I think, is really, really key.
And I could say, like, just from experience, once that the fear for me that also comes up with other admin, when I was an admin, was losing my job. Again, I think it goes back to the financial piece. If I didn't have a paycheck, I wouldn't be able to pay my rent wherever I was living. And so it took me about 4 years to get past that fear in that job with Pickett Street. And once I did, then I started taking these risks. And that's what I became known for, like building my retreat, being on a podcast with Jesse, teaching around the US. Like, I really started taking risks that provided a lot to the business. And so I can't encourage agents enough that if you don't know where you might be missing something, ask for help. Talk to Kathleen, talk to Vanessa, talk to me. Like, it can improve your business beyond what you're really aware of, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to chime in to say that while you were doing that, Mo, when you worked for Pickett Street, In order to do those other activities, you built an operations manual, created scalable, duplicatable processes, were able to, find replacement for when you weren't there, right? So you were building the business while you were growing.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the also important connections. If a business owner, an employer is afraid to lose their admin, so that's part of the underlying energy of I need you, is to also allow the operations and administrative people to build the structure of the business with you so that they can rise and your business can rise, because it's important that everyone have the ability to move forward. And so this is supportive of the business and the business owner. At the same time, it is supportive of the life and the career of the administrative professional.
I think this is a wonderful segue into courage. So when we were talking about what should we touch on this conversation, one of the things that came up was courage, courage to, to go show a property, a $2 million property, and feel like, I got this, I can talk to these people, I got this. How did you guys cultivate courage within the BU group?
Go for it, Kathleen.
So we create a safe space. We make it very clear repeatedly that they're all on their own journey. So if they don't do their homework or they don't read the book or they, it's okay. This is your journey and we're here for you. We asked them to try new things and then we debrief. What did you learn from that? How did that feel? Who appreciated that? So we built these stairs for them to recognize that the reward on the other side of trying it was so worth it. And that fear voice was really trying to protect them, was really kind of the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain, that it really wasn't any big deal to be able to try something new and fail or look awkward or have your hands sweat or, have your knees knock or whatever it was. So we really gave them that experiential setting to be able to try it and see that they didn't die. It was okay. And then it was funny to have, a sense of humor about it. So all those things put together. And then, somewhere around June, we started to see people were doing it in their lives.
So what are some of the big changes that people made after they were, part of the group? Like after June, what are some of the big changes you saw happen?
Well, there was some that were happening even before June. Like the first one that came to mind was I was thinking about in stage 1, our accountability group 1. I'll never forget them because they were immediately bonded. They immediately, and the intention that they had behind setting up their first meeting as an accountability group is really what drove it. So they took charge, they picked a date that everybody was free and they made it happen. And they helped, there were 2 people in that group that were ready to leave their jobs. And so they helped and supported them and kind of gave them that final push to have the conversation and make a graceful exit. And that was huge. And then the sharing piece. So people then they would go on the Facebook group and share about what they were experiencing, what had happened, the breakthroughs they were having. So there was that. There was another admin from that same group who a couple months later left and started her own company. And she also, after one of our speakers, so we have a speaker every quarter, and one of our first speakers, I think it was Enmay Mangles, who's a strategic intuitive advisor. And one of the girls was so impacted by her that she actually flew up to Seattle and met with Enmay in person and then met me and Christina Jaggles in person. So the actions that they started to take were really decisive and quick, which is not typical of the admin personality. We're steady and we're kind of a little bit slower because we're processing and we're making sure that everything's going to work out. And so they're really learning, I think, to begin to get a combination of both, be methodical, but also be decisive and know what you want and go for it. Take that next step. So those are a couple things that came to mind.
So I can think of a few too. We have several people who have taken time to spend more relaxed time with their spouses or loved ones, parents who have expressed they now have more patience with their children. Definitely have members who have found clearer boundaries between work and family. We have members who have started to take care of themselves, meal prep, clean, like do things that really set themselves up to be more relaxed and more present when they're at work or at home. So we have definitely seen, like Kristen shared, on her testimonial, that she would never have thought about showing a $2.9 million property. And that was a part of her role. She's licensed, but she's on a team, right? She's in operations. The buyer's agent on their team is on maternity leave. And so that's one of the reasons why she was doing that. But she recognized that she was capable, that was perfectly okay for her to do. And she said, before this, that would never have been possible. I would not have felt this way.
That's
huge.
so cool.
So cool.
Wow. Oh, man. So before we wrap up, one of the things that was important for you guys within the group was to focus on self-care. So what do we mean by self-care, and why is that important?
Well, we mentioned it a little bit earlier when we were talking about compassion for other people. And I think the part that we get stuck on, especially as women again, is that self-care is selfish. And that's kind of like an old story. And I've had that story in my head for a long time as well, because that's how my mom was raised. And flipping that script and actually saying to ourselves, this is the most generous thing I can do for my family today. I can eat lunch, I can take a break, I can get a massage, and it's not just about me, it's about the people around me. And then we talk constantly about the examples that we have from leaders that we know that have written about it, that have talked about it. And the best leaders are the ones that take care of themselves the most, because they're then able to go and do the work. And so it just ended up that it was weaving into every single conversation we had. And so you can't help but notice that. And so I think everybody's been like, oh God, okay, I need to do something about this, because when it keeps showing up for you, you want to do something to change that.
I can relate
because it wouldn't
to
be
that
intentional
so
for
much.
us. We wouldn't have we didn't weave it into everything. It just kept coming up.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to see how, in order to do that, I have to sleep and drink water and take care of myself. And I think one of the fallacies that got shown is that if we took care of ourselves, we would stop taking care of others. And that's not true. Because at the core, at the heart of these people is wanting to take care of other people, of wanting to do their best in a situation, and not really realizing when they don't eat breakfast, when they only get 5 hours of sleep, when they don't pack a lunch, when they don't go outside for a minute, they are actually less productive, more angry, more resentful, have less focus, screw up, then, beat themselves up about it. It was like, oh, there are these two different cycles happening. Yeah. And so they kept, experimenting with one or the other. And I know it's been true for me. I've been taking better care of myself since I've been in BU than before then. So it's definitely had a positive impact.
This reminded me of something that happened earlier this year. So I had a bunch of health issues. I decided to go, it was supposed to be a 3-day Panchakarma, like a Ayurvedic retreat. I get there and I call my husband. I say, actually, I'm going to stay for 7 days. Surprise. Sorry. And he was like, are you sure? Okay, fine. It was not cheap. It was unplanned. So I do the 7 days. I come back, I show up, and he's like, wow, you need to do that every year. You're like such a nicer person. Will you please go once a year? That was amazing. That's worth every penny. And it really was. Cool. I really did come back as like a nicer human. I really needed the time. But I think we have to really schedule that in, don't we? Because if we just say, yeah, we're going to take care of ourselves, or yeah, I'm going to make sure I pack lunch, it doesn't happen. I think there does have to be accountability for all of that.
Oh, yeah.
We don't prioritize it. It's, oh God, spend money on a massage. It's okay. The back doesn't hurt that bad. I'll get by. I'll just do some stretches. And then you finally go. Or in my case, my husband says, I booked you a massage and you're going. And I'm like, oh yeah, I really needed this. This is fantastic. So thank you for the reminder, actually, that self-care has to come first. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And you remind me as you're saying that about, we also talk a lot about the idea that you can get addicted to the way that you feel. So oftentimes people will know they should do self-care, they should try meditation, or they should do something, but then it feels weird because it's not what their body's used to doing. So it's like we get addicted to feeling negative. It's this, you can go either way, addicted to feeling positive or addicted to feeling negative. And it's again goes back to that building that awareness of realizing, oh, I'm kind of doing this to myself, which is empowering and at the same time kind of scary. And yeah.
Well, and that's why I think doing a retreat and actually be getting out of your environment for a good enough amount of time. And then you've changed, like it's uncomfortable. It's definitely uncomfortable. And you go through a whole thing, but like you're in a nice hotel room, so you'll be okay. And then you're this other person, then you can come back into your life. And then it feels weird. Like those potato chips don't taste as good. They don't feel good, right? The coffee doesn't do the same thing to you. And so you can make the switch. I think it's, for a lot of people, I think you have to get out of your environment if you really want to make significant changes. And then you can come back and then kind of go from there.
I already want to know about this retreat you went on and where it
Oh,
was.
I so recommend it. I'm already ready for next year. You guys, this has been so great. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, the BU, the Inner Circle, is opening up its membership at the end of October. Is that right?
Yep, the 25th,
Okay.
October 25th, and the doors close at midnight on Halloween.
Midnight on Halloween. Okay, so we have a couple of weeks to get signed up. And so what is the cost? What is the time commitment? What do people need to know if this sounds like something that they want to do?
The cost is $111 a month, and it's just month to month, so you can try it out. And if you decide it's not for you, that's okay too. Or we have an annual subscription where you get a couple $100 off that. So it's $1,111 for the year. And then we meet the second and third Fridays of the month from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And so you have those meetings, and then usually one meeting a month with your accountability group. And then the assignments and the books we read between sessions. So yeah, that's the time commitment.
And you go to iloveitwhen.org and click on BU for the wait list.
Perfect. And I will include the link in the description. Thank you so much, ladies.
Cool.
Always so great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.